look, we are 8 to 9 billion people on this planet, and if we do not take care of our planet, it will backfire in many ways. So it's, I think, more than ever a question of what do we learn out of that crisis and how do we go forward.
Welcome back to another edition of COVID-19 from Crisis to Creation here on Mentoring TV. I'm Patricia Falco Beccalli, your host. Well, for this edition, I thought, why not look at the forgotten crisis? Does anybody still care about climate change in times of COVID-19? Well, if you look at some of the experts out there, for example, Isabel Schnabel, she is one of the executive board members of the European Central Bank. She actually thinks that COVID-19 could be the circuit breaker to finally transition into a more sustainable CO2-free society and economy. Well, in order to discuss whether this is really an opportunity, the COVID-19 crisis, to do exactly that, I invited Eric G. Sarasin to the show. Eric, thank you so much for being with us here on Mentoring TV.
Good morning, Patricia. It's my pleasure.
Before getting into the subject, Eric, let me quickly introduce who you are to our Mentoring TV community. You, of course, are the family member of one of the oldest, most important banking dynasty, the Sarasin banking family, private banking, that was then sold to J. Safra family a few years ago. You developed that business really into one of the top private banks, actually globally speaking as well. 30 years of banking experience, and now you're moved more into private equity, investing in sustainable businesses, as well as being a huge philanthropist and also involved in NGOs and societies that really try to promote, to safeguard our nature, our world going forward. So that is all about you. Eric, let's kick off our discussion. Do you actually think that climate change is really a forgotten crisis right now? Do you think there is enough focus on it?
Well, the media controls pretty much what comes out, and COVID has been dominating what's out there and has been dominating the headlines, which is normal after such a crisis, which is touching a whole humanity and changing everything that we are used to, and has enormous damage on social-wise, but economically as well. But nevertheless, on the contrary, I think the whole climate change movement, which has died down a bit in terms of the demonstrations that we had before and so on, this is still very much on the focus. And you have seen with reduced air traffic and with reduced economic activity, we have seen examples of some oceans that all of a sudden are clean, and all these effects, positive effects on environment, that all of a sudden, people say, why? Look at that. Why did that happen? Probably we are too much, we have in our search for globalization, for more economic activity everywhere, we have overdone it. And COVID indirectly is a consequence of that, although it could have been contained. But look, we are 8 to 9 billion people on this planet, and if we do not take care of our planet, it will backfire in many ways. So it's, I think, more than ever a question of what do we learn out of that crisis and how do we go forward. And you see a lot of things happening right now, and I think it's an excellent opportunity.
Yeah. And there you are actually agreeing with Isabel Schnabel to say it is an excellent opportunity to really use COVID-19 in what is happening in terms of response, and also the effect, as you were just saying, on how the climate straight away kind of popped back up once our economy was shut down for a few weeks. So where do you see the opportunity? Let's get a little bit more specific, Eric.
I think, and you see the programs that the 2 trillion program in the United States for more green, using it more into the green and alternative energies and projects in the European community as well. I think we should all, it's easier said, but there should be a coordination on what should be done exactly. And I just have here a report. I don't know if you saw it, from the World Economic Forum, the future of nature and business. It's an excellent study that they made, and in there they talk about what has to be done in the food, land, and ocean use, in the infrastructure and the built environment, and the energy and all that goes around the extractives. And this report is in as far excellent that it says, if we do it right, the total opportunities for business until 2030 is a total of 10 trillion, 10.1 trillion about annual business opportunities, and creating about 300 and almost 400 million jobs by 2030.
But actually, green business means business, and it means profitability, and that is what I guess the World Economic Forum report tries to express there. It's an opportunity to make money for businesses.
Yes, and I think now everybody, I mean, all those people who said, well, you know, denying it, like unfortunately the president of the United States and other people, I think they have the pressure from business will be such that governments need to act, need to put up regulations or alleviate regulations in some areas to facilitate that. And I believe very strongly that, you know, a little anecdote, when I started in our bank in early 90s, we started a fund that was, the term sustainability was not existent then. So we started a fund called the Ecological Eco-SAR for Sarasin. And the partners then, the older partners then said, there's no way a private bank can go into financing green stuff, because green equals red back then.
Yeah, exactly. You're very avant-garde there, yeah.
Yes, and anyway, we did it. We started very small. Then the term sustainability was created by the Norwegian Prime Minister, remember, in the early 90s. And then it started, but we were still a lot of clients and business partners said, "Well, you're going into sustainability. Come on, this is a fad. It's going to go away." And obviously has not, but it took a long time until now, almost 30 years later, that we need to do something, because we only have one planet, and we know what's happening.
And you know, this is the response from your clients or potential investors in that fund, Eric, is like sustainability. What is that anyway? What is a green fund? What are you trying to say? Is exactly the point that, for example, Boston Consulting Group is making in one of their studies about building sustainable businesses. And they say the problem is that today's businesses, up to now, up to recently, they don't combine the strategy setting process together with sustainability. And so they call it the SBMI, so the Sustainable Business Model Innovation. It needs to go hand in hand, and they have a very, very strong and very clear approach how you kind of stress test your environment. First of all, your business for your environment, and really from cradle to grave, and set the strategies in order to really be embedded in all those needs, be it in your supply chain, be it in your entire ecosystem, and that really then transitions any business into something more sustainable. Is this what you've been doing at your bank back then already?
Yes, I mean, I think we were pioneers in that area, because but we were small, of course. But at the time, I spoke to the former CEO of UBS, Marcel Ospel, and I told him, look, we have the expertise. We can manage maybe a fund that UBS at the time, Swiss Bank Corporation, would put out, because you don't have necessarily the credibility, because you finance oil drilling, and you finance all that stuff. And he said to me, that's impossible. We are UBS. We are not a small bank. We are UBS, and if you outsource it to you, that would be terrible. This thinking has passed. This thinking has passed. Today, all large banks are in some way involved, but they still have, and I'm not saying just Swiss banks, everywhere, they still have a conflict, because they have to finance industries and finance businesses which not necessarily are contributing to a sustainable future. That's a bit of the dilemma. But again, I think, if the tendency continues, if you think that we have today, we use 100 million barrels of oil every day, of which 50%, 50 million is used in traffic and so on, and about 40% is used in petrochemicals and all that stuff, and it is reducing. We see all car companies investing billions in electric cars.
Fuel cell technology as well.
Yeah, exactly. The cost of energy will go down and so on. So you will see that, and I think since the oil price dropped tremendously, I think 120 oil companies went, or oil and drilling, oil-related company went bankrupt. So this tendency towards this cleaner energy, but efficient energy, and where you can make money, that's the bottom line, that we can
and that
do
is
good things and benefit from it, that everybody, stakeholders, everybody can benefit and make money from it.
Yeah, exactly.
The ideal word.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't make money as a business, you don't have a business.
That's
and that means that you have to, kind of sack people. So the economy, again, whatever you do, it needs to make money. You are still a business. And that is something that also Bill Gates in his latest blog pointed out. He said, okay, look, when it comes to climate crisis, he thinks COVID-19 is bad. However, the climate crisis and the climate change is COVID-19 is just showing us something worse to come when it comes to climate change. And he says there are three important issues in order to really go for that transition. The first thing is, let science and technology, innovation and investment in this innovation take the lead. They know kind of what to do. There's a lot of analysis, there are experts, and this is what should be funded. But he makes a very important point, which you also touched on. It is very expensive still to generate clean energy. And he says what we must do is to look not only for new innovations, but make them cheap and affordable for poor countries, because these are the ones that are going to be hit the most by climate change. They are the poor countries and the southern countries. And to be honest with you, why should anybody care if they are hungry, whether it's good for the planet or not, that they just, farm their crops? So here the pricing point is super important. In there, you have kind of maybe, the juxtaposition between a business that needs to make money, so there needs to be a margin, but then again, you need to make it still affordable for for an audience that is huge and is suffering the climate consequences. What do you say to that?
I think, yes, you are, of course, you're absolutely right. But I think one aspect we should not forget is the technological innovation. You see already today in Africa, many people who do all their banking through their mobile phones and all that. So this, with the technology advances, we will be able to gap this, hopefully, this poverty gap as we bring in, the West, the developed countries bring in technologies into underdeveloped countries to help them deal with all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
And I also think the fourth, what they call the fourth industrial revolution, technologies play a very important role. And I just cite that from the report. For over 80% of the business opportunities identified in the report of the World Economic Forum, they can unlock nearly 8.7 trillion in value. So if you are able to help the underdeveloped world with technologies that are groundbreaking, and they can help them come out of poverty. And I mean, we have already made great advances if you look at the statistics in terms of the poverties, but at the same time we have a huge gap between the rich and the poor.
Yes.
And we have to be very careful as we, and I'm not a politician at all, but if to look that the social inequalities don't go wider, and we have social unrest and revolutions as we have in some countries where there's anarchy. This is another subject by itself.
No, but it's an important point, Eric, and I'm happy that you picked this up because, you know, remember the film Waterworld, was it? You know, the fight for basically all the basics to survive. So the Maslow pyramid really kind of dropping from self-fulfillment to, okay, I just have to have food. And if we don't look after our planet, these kind of scenarios you just pointed out could be a possibility. Eric, I just thought, why not take a couple of minutes to look at what you are involved in on a board level, and that is Race for Water Foundation. It's the first time, you know, studying you and researching this conversation, I came across it, I dug into it, and I thought it was so touching and really flabbergasting in terms of data that I would like to share for the first time on Mentory TV, actually a short video about the issue of plastics, especially microplastics in the oceans, because that foundation you're involved in is looking at preservation of our water, oceans, etc. So let me quickly screen share and let's see whether it really happens. Share this one and share this with our viewers, simply because it is amazing. So here we go. Well, I was so touched by this video that I thought I want to really extend this. It's a very strong message, and if I just, you know, if people didn't read it, but one of the most shocking things I, you know, learned from this video, that men eat or consume on average 5 gram of plastic, microplastic a week. That's like eating a credit card every single week.
Yeah.
Okay, I will not doubt that statistic, but it's an incredible issue. Tell us a little bit more about how you're involved and what this foundation does, Eric, please.
First of all, I think there are many foundations, corporations who try to fight plastic. There's a lot, thank God, a big movement, but many have not found the right solution or the right way to clean up and so on. What the problem is if we dump I think every minute we dump a garbage truck full of plastic in the oceans as we speak, and these big gyros you have in all in the big oceans, the biggest being in the Pacific, with the size of, I think, a diameter of 350 kilometers and going down three kilometers. I mean, we cannot clean up the oceans because of all kinds of constraints. That is impossible. So where Race for Water comes in, what we say is to act, learn, and educate. Meaning that we want to first of all educate the people about everywhere about plastic in the oceans, and secondly to find a solution. So the first part was that the founder, Marco Simeoni, a remarkable man, has created a ship, or a ship was built, which is called the Odyssey ship, which goes goes 5 years around the world. Is now in the third
The first
year.
was 2015, I think.
Yes, 2015, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And this ship is powered slowly by solar and wind, and they go from one spot to another. So they went to Dominican Republic, Peru, Galapagos Island, then the Pacific, and so on. Right now in Japan, and tell people what the effects are, and especially in those smaller countries and islands where they have no idea of how to recycle. And if you think that there are 28 different kinds of plastic, then you don't know. If you burn them, and that's even worse. So coming back to that, the solution that we are aiming to is to we have a prototype. It needs to be proven 100%. It's how do you say, proof of concept. Sorry, that takes the plastic, puts it in very small pellets, puts it through a machine that does pyrolysis, and out of pyrolysis comes energy. So out of plastic make energy.
Yeah.
And these machines,
yeah,
exactly. And these machines can be deployed in a container size. They can be deployed in islands and in countries where they don't have the infrastructure and so on. Now, it's if it works, and we believe very much that it will work, it will change a lot of things. But our view is we have to start at the source. We have to start at the source. What is happening right now, what already has happened, all the plastic in the oceans, it's very difficult to clean that all up. So, but I think it's one of the, as you said correctly, it's one of the most pressing problems that we have because of in the food chain what we consume. We will, and it's causing cancer. It's causing all kinds of things, and you will have if we don't do something, and I don't think that's going to happen, but the statistics say if you don't do anything by 2050, we will have more plastic in the oceans than fish.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the apocalypse. I mean, you don't think about that, but so things have to be done, and plastic is one aspect which is very important. And for example, the three biggest plastic producers, and I mean the renowned companies, Nestle, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, they have, and Unilever, I think, they are working on substitute for plastic. And plastic, and they said they're working very hard, so they have a biodegradable version and so on, but it will take another 10 years. Meantime, we need some solutions.
Exactly. And if I may interject to what you were saying, you mentioned Marco Simeone, who created basically the foundation. He's also the president there. And I think we need to point out a couple of things that he said. He said prevention basically is better than cure. So we have to look at what we're doing on land in order to prevent plastic from even hitting the ocean or our food supply chain, and also what your study shows is, everybody's talking about these plastic islands in the sea. That's actually only 1% what is floating. 1% of all the plastics in the ocean that is floating, that's it. The rest of it is actually microplastics eaten by the fish, eaten by us, which is the real issue. So preventing, i.e. generating business models, production models, like you were saying, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and Nestle are trying to do, even already in the production process, avoiding plastic, and then also recycling it or not having people dump it is a really important part.
Yes, and one other point I'd like to mention is that we Western countries, we export plastic mostly to Asia. And you have if you go on the Race for Water website, you have a terrifying clip of how in I think it's Malaysia, how they produce tofu using the plastic that has been washed up on the shores to using plastic for fire to do tofu, to make tofu, and we eat it afterwards. It's horrible. So I mean, this has to stop. Even Switzerland, as an advanced country for recycling, we still ship plastic to Malaysia, Indonesia, all these countries down there. And what they do? They dump it again or burn it.
Yeah,
this has to stop.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Impossible situation.
Legislation, Eric, I watched that video, I dug into the issue a little bit, and what seems to be missing here, that these toxic elements in our food chain, packaging chain, don't seem to be, well, harmful enough to have a real transparency legislation where the packaging companies really need to list or need to omit certain chemicals that are, interfering with our health, endocrine health, fetal health. Why is there no stronger legislation, do you think? Or is there, and I'm just not aware?
Well, they're trying, but again, it's an economic situation. If you, of course, I mean, the consumer, if you refuse to buy food wrapped in plastic, or you have to pay $2 more, $2 more for plastic wrapping, then you start saying, oh no, why do I do this? The other thing is also the big retailers that put out the food in our supermarkets. There you should be able to, I go back. If people used to go on the market to buy their food,
yeah.
What do they do? And
straight into the basket.
They put it in newspaper.
Oh yeah, true.
Newspaper, fine. That's fine. So in the supermarkets, it's not necessary, and it's only that regulation has to come, I think, but the regulation has to come and provide also a substitute for that. And I think the notion of plastic is terrible. If plastic was invented in the early 60s, end 50s, early 60s, something like that, and it was a revolution. Plastic was unbelievable because we used to save food, to keep it fresh, to do all kinds of things. And in the petrochemical industry, it was widely used, and it was considered something fantastic. But of course, we overdid it. Like many things we do, unfortunately, human beings, we overdo it. We overdo it.
We overdo it. We just take it one step too far, even though we're trying to, go back on the plastic bags given out and the straws and whatever. But these are maybe just little tiny drops into the ocean. To wrap up our conversation, Eric, let me ask you, the ECB came through with that report saying COVID-19 actually could be a circuit breaker to really use this opportunity of the economy, reviving it, to put investments and employment towards these technologies that are sustainable, CO2 friendly, green energy, etc. Do you believe COVID-19 is actually the circuit breaker? And things will now accelerate in terms of sorting out the climate crisis?
It's a very brutal circuit breaker. I think we could have done without it, but maybe it was, yeah, maybe it was a wake-up call for us, for humanity. And I think I hope we will find a solution, and I hope the vaccines are coming soon, and I hope that the virus doesn't mutate too much into a new wave. But I think we need to learn, and learning. Say we. I think it's from the top to the bottom. The governments, I mean, putting out programs like they announced in Europe and in the US and in Asia, I think are very important. I think global cooperation should be furthered, and there the biggest nations have the lead, and the biggest nations are the United States and China, and it will only happen if I think, unfortunately, but it's like that, if we have a different president in the United States who understands not only COVID, but also the environment and the implication and the business. I think, I'm not political, but a change there is absolutely necessary. And I think the one more comment on that, the Biden Kamala Harris ticket that was announced last night is very good, very strong. But coming back, I think also down to the citizens, the way we behave, or we behaved before COVID, was a bit careless, bit like, it's goes on, we're booming, everything is great.
Convenient.
I think, yeah, convenient. I think this will change the behavior of many people. Although I have to say, if I see pictures of beaches in Europe overfilled and so on, it gives me the chills, because I think many people have not realized that this is not over. This is far from being over, and it will cost us for years, and many businesses will go bankrupt and so on. But on the other hand, what I said initially, the opportunities that are coming out of there can create, again, new economic activities and new jobs, and that's what's important. Jobs, and as you said earlier, helping the underdeveloped world, and through that also keeping the social balance within our countries, within the world. So that is the big thoughts. But I think if we pull together, especially the elite, the intellectual and the economic elite in this world, pull together, we can manage.
Yeah, and effort is something that we need in order to evolve. The last one, because you mentioned the elite, the intellectual elite, the financial elite. Looking at yourself and having been involved in building businesses, to the highest level, what would you say are the 3 key learnings, Eric, you can pass on to our community in order to build a sustainable business, also considering that you come from a family business?
Good question. I think, first of all, if I hear people say, "Well, I'm just a little citizen. I cannot do anything in solving whatever problems there are." Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Get involved. Get involved. Get involved on smaller levels, on higher levels. Just get involved. Don't sit there and just say it's fate. It's going to happen. That's number one. Number two is, I think that you gotta, in terms of businesses and young businesses, as you said, I work with young people in building businesses, is the relentless search for solutions for new businesses. And if you have an idea, believe in it and go all the way. I think the environment is excellent. There's a lot of capital around, and people who are able to help. Then finally, I think we should not lose hope in everything we do. But of course, important thing is the cooperation, or the work together between the governments and businesses. And there you know that in some countries, unfortunately, the government is too much involved in business, meaning it doesn't work. And there, I think we need a much more. The governments need to take themselves as regulator, but as facilitator for the businesses to be developed. I mean, that was a bit a long description of what I wanted to say.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think that's what comes to my mind. I mean, there are probably lots of other things, but I think we need to give young people, especially the generation, you know, when our children say to us, you know, it's great you destroyed the planet. It's great what you did, you know. We need to give them hope that it's not all lost, not a lost cause, but that it's worth it getting involved and doing something.
Eric, thank you so much for your wisdom sharing with us. Thank you so much for the great work you do, be it as an investor, be it as a philanthropist and a huge supporter of the NGOs you are involved in. Thank you so much for joining us here on Mentor TV.
Thank you very much, Patricia. It was a pleasure. Thank you.